What does it take to launch a creative product that actually sells?
We work with a creator who is making more than $15 million a year through their digital products.
In this episode, I speak to the strategist behind some of the biggest digital creative products.
We work with a creator who did $300,000 within 30 days of launching a product, but that's because the product that they are creating is a great fit for the audience.
We discuss how to find that perfect product.
There are usually product opportunities hidden in those places that the creator just hasn't really given that much thought into. Every piece of content I post, I would be going back and looking at comments and DMs, and I would be asking, like, what is the pain point here?
Where the biggest opportunities are.
What the market is telling me is the biggest opportunity are memberships and subscriptions.
And the things to avoid.
And so they will post one or two times about something and then wonder why it flopped.
This is an episode about building products that you absolutely don't want to miss. Before we dive into today's episode, let's talk about what happens when you've developed a winning product. Miles shares stories of creators earning up to $15 million. But here's the thing. Once you've built something amazing, you need a trusted, lasting place to promote it. And that starts with your domain name. A .store domain is a branded, commerce-focused web address that tells your audience, this is where I sell. It boosts click-through rate by nearly 90% and doubles organic visibility, all while staying platform independent and fully owned by you. Colin and Samir are just one of the creators that we talk about in this episode that have chosen to use a .store domain name. And so whether you're building your first course or your 10th product line, give your brand a domain name that's built to sell. Get yours today by using my special link in the description. Right, let's get on with the show. So Miles, you work at the intersection of content and commerce. What's the biggest opportunity you're seeing right now?
So I would say there's two. I would say there's what the market is telling me is the biggest opportunity, and then there's what I believe is the biggest opportunity, and they might be on different timelines. What the market is telling me is the biggest opportunity are memberships and subscriptions. We are seeing a large amount of demand of creators and really audiences being interested in that type of digital product. And I think it's a bit of an evolution from what we saw with sort of courses or communities. People are now realizing that a lot of that content can live in one place as a membership or subscription product. And what's nice about these products is they can be very unique to a creator and their brand and what the audience wants. And so there might be a course within a membership, there might be a community within a membership, there might be AI chatbots within a membership. So it's quite this kind of flexible container for controlled delivery of content to a creator's audience. And yeah, we've seen just a massive uptick in people interested in exploring those types of businesses. So that's certainly what the market is kind of banging on our door about. What I personally am more excited about, or not necessarily more excited about, but just as excited about, which is in the kind of medium to long-term horizon, is creators building software products. I think that the old paradigm of partner with an existing software product to shill their product is something that is kind of going by the wayside now. And creators have been exploring more equity deals with those types of businesses, which I think is good. But as the cost of developing this software goes down and building these very niche, very tailored software products for an audience, the uptake in creators building them themselves and working with partners to build them, I think is going to go through the roof. And that really creates kind of long-term enterprise equity value for these creators, which I'm really excited about. I think a lot of people have started to sort of vibe code these and have realized that that's maybe not the best approach, because then you create something that breaks as soon as it hits scale, and creators obviously have built-in scale. But yeah, that's the thing I'm excited about, is these kind of like niche little weird software applications that we can be building with creators.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to discussing both today, but let's get everyone's attention. How much revenue can top creators make from digital products like memberships, apps, and courses at the moment?
Yeah, the eye-popping ones. We work with a creator who is making more than $15 million a year through their digital products. We work with a creator who did $300,000 within 30 days of launching a product. We work with creators who have sold $15 million plus of courses. So there are kind of the eye-popping numbers. At the same time, I think for a lot of creators, the benefit is this kind of stable revenue stream, even if it only is a supplementary one. If you're going from 85% of your revenue being AdSense and brand partnerships, to offset that with, let's say 50, 60, $70,000 a month in digital product sales can not only be great for your mental health and sort of the kind of stability of a business, but also sets you up to be able to take more strategic bets in your content. And so I think there are outsized economic outcomes, which are great to see, but there are also ones that just really improve the quality of life for creators and improve the stability of their business, which is for a lot of people just as valuable and meaningful.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And you've worked with the likes of Ryan Trahan, Dr. Becky, Colin and Samir. What are some of those shared traits of these top performers that you see with products that they launch?
Yeah. Creators it's interesting. I feel oftentimes in the creator economy, we can sometimes fall into the trap of treating creators as these sort of monoliths and that all creators are this or that. And my experience has definitely been that they're all snowflakes. They're all like very, very unique. I think the thing that the commonality I see amongst these top creators that certainly the ones I have worked with is one, just a ruthless standard for quality. And I think really the underlying thing from that is a tremendous amount of respect for their audience. And that is the thing that I can tell sort of right away whether or not a creator is going to be successful in taking a product to market is not only do they have an understanding of their audience, but do they really care about their time? Do they value their experience? Do they care that if they put a dollar sign in front of something and try to sell an audience member and turn them into a customer, do they care that that customer is receiving outsized value for the money that they are providing? And so that's something that all of those creators you mentioned and some of the other creators we work with, they just really, really give a shit about the person on the other end of the screen. And that's something that I find, coming from working in traditional businesses and working with enterprise for a long time, like, no shade to the marketing managers out there, but like I would work with marketing managers and I'm like, not really sure you care about like the end customer of this thing. And that is a unique facet of a creator business that I find really energizing.
Yeah, me too. I love that description, ruthless attention to detail. Are there particular signals that you look for, or metrics or sizes that you look for and that creators should think about when it comes to launching a product?
Yeah, I would say it's much more an art than a science. But I would say generally the smaller the niche, or the more niche the niche, the smaller the audience needs to be. Oftentimes we will use this framing of there being a kind of Venn diagram of audience and customer, and those two things don't always align. And so, to give you a tangible example, we're launching a product in a couple weeks with someone who has, across all platforms, I think more than 30 million followers now. But the product we are launching for them is only viable for a subset of that audience. And so it really kind of tempers the economic expectations for what a product launch will be. Whereas, there are creators who have 100,000 followers who have built $10 million businesses. But that's because the product that they are creating is a great fit for the audience. And so that Venn diagram of audience and customer is like a perfect overlap. So that's one thing that we're often thinking about. But I would say the two more or sort of less tangible things we often think about is existing audience demand. And so oftentimes we will see that when working with a creator and looking through their DMs, their comments, there are usually product opportunities hidden in those places that the creator just hasn't really given that much thought into kind of how those demands would turn into a product. And then the other place that we will often look is in the psychographic of the creator themselves. Launching products is hard, takes a lot of mental energy. And so that desire of a creator to create a thing that they own is really something that has to be there. If the creator isn't committed to making the thing and talking about the thing and selling the thing and iterating on the thing, then it's not very likely to be successful.
Got it. And once you decide that there is an opportunity, is there like a framework that you go through, like a standardized process and maybe a way of validating ideas once they get to a certain stage?
Yeah, so there's kind of two common scenarios that creators will come to us. Is one is they have an initial thesis for the product, and they will have varying degrees of conviction in that thesis. usually we will try to do some type of validation for that. And the easiest way to do that, and really a mechanism that creator businesses have built in, is you have direct access to the audience. So oftentimes we will create surveys, or we might do kind of smaller focus groups depending on where the creator's audience is and how we might be able to get access to them. But particularly for more software oriented products, we will create what we call feature vignettes. So we will create, low fidelity visualizations of what a feature might look like. So whether that is a filterable short form library, or we work with a more fitness oriented creator that we have meal plans and fitness plans for, and we will kind of get these as concepts in front of an audience and get a sense of their level of interest in that feature. And so when we do that for 10, 15, 20 features, we can start to sort of piece together what a product might look like that would make sense for that audience. And so that's when we're kind of validating a concept. In some cases, creators will come to us and say, I have a really large audience. I don't know what the thing is. And that will be a bit more of a ideation kind of blue sky exercise where we, based off our experience and our understanding of their space, will help them build out the thesis for a product. And then we would go through that same validation phase.
Got it. I normally think that it's a bad sign if the creators doesn't know what the product is. How often would you say that you see it, I guess, then with an idea and then without an idea? And maybe correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I disagree and I agree in some cases. I think it is great when a creator has that initial idea. I think depending on the complexity of the product, it can be hard for some creators to kind of wrap their minds around what the concept for the product is. What I have realized is that, and I think when I started working in the creator economy, I had the underlying assumption that creators were either expert level marketers or they were CEOs and entrepreneurs. And I think many of them have grown into that, but oftentimes they are filmmakers, they're experts in another area, they're creatives. And, I've spent 15 years doing product strategy. And so it is unfair for me to expect a creator to have that kind of built-in expertise and knowledge. And so what we really focus on is making sure that they have an understanding of their customer, they have an understanding of the needs of that audience, and then we can work with them to sort of extract what these theses for products are. And you can tell when we hit it because we will put something back in front of the creator and we say, hey, we think this is the opportunity. And the common reaction is just like, oh, of course it is. I knew that, but I'd never been able to sort of frame it that way. And that usually means that we're onto something.
That's a great response. I hear you on that. So what does the timeline look like? How long does it take, or how long should a creator think about launching a product? Is it a month, or can these take like a year to develop sometimes?
Yeah, it can definitely depend on what the complexity of the product is. For on the lower end of the spectrum would be something like a course or a community that is relatively limited in terms of its feature set. Assuming that we're going through a full sort of design and development process for that, as well as the content creation on the creator's end, those can be kind of 3 to 4 month projects. We would generally recommend that there's at least a kind of 8-week ramp up period prior to launch where the customer or the creator is starting to warm up their audience as well. You don't want to just launch a product out of nowhere. And then on the far end of the spectrum, we built a generative AI reading application for students to be generating AI avatars of themselves, and then reading. It will provide reading assistance as they are reading stories about themselves. That's like custom software development, and so that is a much longer timeline. That could be 8, 9, 10 months up to a year sort of thing, and then everything in between on that spectrum. If you are a creator, the biggest implication in this whole process is that usually we are done our work before the creator, because the creator is, as part of this project, likely making more content. And I think my experience has always been that they slightly underestimate the needs of creating net new content on top of their existing content production. And so we always try to kind of temper a creator's expectation there that we might be able to get something together in 3 months that is of quality and ready to go out the door. But if you're creating a course from scratch, there's a lot of work that goes into that, and it might take a little bit longer considering you're also making a YouTube video every week.
Yeah, that makes sense. And your team and the business's support with creators, I imagine this also depends, but how involved are you on a project by project basis? I guess sometimes very involved, where the creator is less involved, and sometimes more the creator wants to be hands on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the things that we are sort of always involved with are the design and development of a platform. Oftentimes, we will also be involved in the marketing and launch of it. So that's everything from building out kind of email funnels, copywriting, supporting in kind of launch events and planning, things like that. Where we are usually less involved is the actual creation of the content. So, to use Colin and Samira, for example, we worked with them to launch their creator startup brand and building that educational offering. There's nothing I could tell Colin and Samira about recording a video or how to be, providing education around YouTube. So, while I watched the entire course and kind of chatted with them and gave them feedback, that was, very much their portion of the process, where we are more about how it came to life online.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm going to ask another question. It depends, but maybe there's some rules of thumb that you can share. Just in terms of pricing, like how should a creator think about pricing their product? Just in terms of like a framework.
Yeah, so it's a tricky art, and is obviously very dependent on what the product is. I would actually say my perception of this has changed quite a bit, largely in thanks to something that I heard Jay Klaus say at VidSummit last year, which we saw each other at VidSummit as well. But so a well kind of documented aspect of asking for feedback on pricing is that people are bad at answering the question. And so if you say to someone, hey, how much value would you get from this product? It's just sort of an arbitrary question. You get arbitrary answers. But Jay presented a framework where you actually, every time you're asking about pricing, you describe the features of the product and the benefits of the product. And then you are actually asking for 4 data points, which is, and I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but one of them being, what would be the price be that makes this an absolute no-brainer, hell yes? What would be the price that makes this feel like I would never pay that in my life for it? What would be the price that is, oh, that's a bit of a stretch, but I could probably make it work? And getting those multiple data points per respondent in a survey allows you to get a much more comprehensive sense of where those different kind of price thresholds are. And then usually what I am an advocate for is, particularly with the types of creators we work with that have very large audiences, is because there is zero marginal cost to delivering these products, to make sure that you are pricing kind of on the lower end of that spectrum to capture the largest portion of the audience that you could. And really, the benchmark I always use is if someone is giving you $1, you kind of want them to feel like they are getting $10 of value. So it's a $100 product, $1,000 of value, to have that kind of 10x there. And so you get to the point where you feel like, hey, this is a course that is delivering $1,000 of value, price it at $100 and be able to sell a lot of it at scale.
Yeah, I like that framework there from Jay. And I'll ask a more specific question now. So one of the things I've witnessed is just the importance of constantly marketing a product. This isn't like a one-off. And you touched on it a little bit, like warming up the customers. Can you share some thoughts on how creators should think about that, sort of warming up the customers and pre-marketing, and then the continuous marketing required to maintain ongoing sales?
Yeah, so I think the thing that more often than not, when these businesses flop, it is because the creator kind of posts and ghosts. And so they'll talk about it, 3 posts leading up to a launch and then never again. And I think, particularly the way that algorithms are working now, it's also unlikely that the majority of your audience sees those posts. So the way that we advise creators, particularly during that launch period, let's call it a week or 2, is that the mindset shift that we recommend is that if you have created something truly of value, it is your obligation to ensure your audience knows about it. And so in that 2 weeks, you kind of want to frame it as, I have made this thing, there is this party happening, I want to make sure everyone is invited to the party. And so to really up the frequency that you are talking about something so that everybody is hearing about it. In a post launch context, the two things that we really counsel people on is one, to not forget about the customers who have purchased this thing. And whether that's a course or an app or a membership or subscription product, there is an element of customer care and after service and really making sure that everyone gets the most out of the product. And so there definitely needs to be dedicated focus and attention to that. And then usually what we recommend is kind of like a little bit of a cooling off period after launch where we can learn from the people who have bought it. We can see what worked in the launch strategy and then either consider a relaunch, whether that's on a quarterly or annual basis, or start to leverage what we learned in that launch process to build out an evergreen process. And so that can, again, change a little bit based on what the product is. But it is, I'm not sure if this reference will translate, but it's not Field of Dreams, like you build it and they won't come. And so it's ultimately important both in a pre-launch and post-launch context that you continue to talk about this thing and really optimize how that funnel is constructed to get people down from a social audience into a paying customer.
Yeah. And what's the biggest mistake that creators typically make with launching a digital product?
Yeah, so I think there's probably two that I see quite often. The first is building a product that is built, how would I frame it? I think, listen, if you have built a YouTube channel where you have 1 million subscribers, you know a lot about YouTube. And you could probably make an educational product about how to build a YouTube channel. But if you are a science creator, the portion of the people who are in your audience who want to learn about building a YouTube channel is very small. And so that's one of the biggest mistakes I see people is they conflate audience and customer unnecessarily. And so it's really, really important to make sure that you are building a product that fits the needs of your audience rather than is strictly related to your own expertise. Because in some cases, those will be the same, but in many cases, they're not. And so I've seen creators waste, hundreds of thousands of dollars, not to mention the kind of social and parasocial capital with their audiences by building something that nobody really wanted in the first place. And then the second one is the social contract of social is that in most cases, creator provides value. Audience watches ads to receive that value for free. And so almost universally creators we have worked with and I've talked to feel uncomfortable at the prospect of selling things to an audience. And so they will retreat from that idea and they will not talk about a product enough. And so they will post 1 or 2 times about something and then wonder why it flopped. And so that's probably the second biggest mistake I see is people just not feeling comfortable selling and thereby kind of shooting themselves in the foot around actually selling something.
Yeah. And what about different genres of content creator? Are there some genres where it's much easier to sell a digital product than others? And how do you think about that? And how should creators think about that?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I think anything, we have a large emphasis on kind of knowledge creators and experts. I think anything that is purely entertainment, the thesis for a product can be a little trickier. And so, the way I often think about it is the creator in their content solving a pain point for a customer? If so, there's usually a relatively clear thesis for a product after some digging and some conceptualization. If the content is a vitamin, then it can oftentimes be a little harder to find what that thesis for a product would be. Not impossible. There's oftentimes still something there. But I think the more a audience member is used to coming to a creator to have a problem solved, the easier it is to spin up a potential paid product.
And what about branding? Do you support creators with the development of a new brand? Do you have recommendations on things that they should do in terms of a domain name? How do you sort of advise creators from that perspective?
Yeah, so I would say that probably 95% of the projects we work on also include a branding component. But it's quite interesting that I think a lot of creators, the definition of what branding is can vary quite a bit based on the structure of their businesses. So businesses that are kind of media properties in and of themselves, the brand is the way that it shows up to the audience. It is the way that it shows up to advertisers. And so it's very important in a lot of cases for those brands to be, very refined and polished and professional so that it can work for both sides of that coin. On the other side, we worked with Ryan Trahan and launched his website and did some branding work for him. Ryan's brand on YouTube is very different than what he wants to put forward to his advertisers, because Ryan's aesthetic is very kind of low fidelity. Obviously the production quality is the content and the storytelling is great, but the production quality is intentionally quite low, and is a lot of stuff shot from iPhone. He jokingly said like Arial is his brand font, but so the way that he needs to show up to a Fortune 500 CMO is a totally different thing. And so that's one thing that especially coming from the corporate world, branding can mean a lot of different things in these contexts. And not only that, but oftentimes the brand is both the brand of the business as well as the personal brand of the creator. So there's a lot of nuance to kind of how these brands can manifest. But we are certainly advocates of thinking intentionally through that and making sure that you're building a brand that has the ability to scale with the creator, and oftentimes launch products and brands off the main creator brand as well.
Well, that's a great segue into your business that's rebranded 2 Rare Days from Course Studio. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. The real crux of it, I was getting incredibly tired of telling people that we did more than courses. When we started as a business, it was the beginning of the pandemic. There was a real emphasis on courses. That kind of like online learning blew up in the first year of the pandemic. So the name served us really well. But over the course of the next few years, we started to do more software development, apps, communities, membership and subscription products. And so course was just this large looming misnomer right there in the title of our business. And so we started working on this about a year ago. And that was the kind of inciting element of why we rebranded. And then we ended up selecting Rare Days after kind of going through lots of different names, really because we wanted to reorient our shift. Rather from being focused on courses for the creator economy, it was products for the creator and really centering the creator. And Rare Days to us really represents our kind of optimism and excitement about this time in human history. It's kind of unprecedented that one person can pick up a microphone and a camera and reach millions of people. And so we wanted to reflect that in our brand as well.
I love that. I get asked all the time, where did the name Electrify come from, and Electrify Video Partners? And we're looking to rebrand soon as well. We're not going to change our name, but we do want to amp up our brand. So watch out for that. But it's lovely to hear you describe sort of the mission there. And let's go into software products in a bit more detail. Obviously, the business has expanded. Can you give us a bit more of a flavor, an idea of what you mean when you're describing these software as a service products that creators could be thinking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had mentioned that generative AI reading application before. So that's one example. We work with a creator named Hannah Williams, who is her brand name is Salary Transparent Street. And so she does sort of woman on the street interviews where she asks people about how much they make, and her whole ethos is around promoting pay transparency. And so the kind of more straightforward thing I think that a lot of creators would have done is I'll make a course about salary negotiation. But Hannah was very adamant about not wanting to really sell things that way to her audience. It kind of went against her ethos and the relationship she had with her community. And so we have built 2 software products for her. We built a transparent salary database so people can come on and submit their salaries and then see thousands of transparent salary listings. And then she also, we have built a job board for her. And so companies can come on and promote salary transparent jobs on this database. And so through this, Hannah is building this incredible wealth of data around transparent salary listings as well as jobs. And so she is able to incorporate those into her brand partnerships business, as well as work almost more like a kind of job board or recruiter in that sense, where people that want access to Hannah's audience can come on and promote job listings. And so these are quite custom pieces of technology that all live on her website. But that would be another example. And then, down the road, what I'm more excited about is basically people in particular niches saying, hey, this is an entrenched player in the space that solves very specific need in my niche. Could I go basically replace that piece of software with something I've built myself? So I was talking to a creator the other day who is in the 3D modeling space. And people sell these kind of like niche plugins to 3D modeling software. And historically, people had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars building these things, whereas you could probably build them for $10,000-$20,000 a pop now. And so rather than doing affiliate deals with all of these, he could spend $200,000, build them all himself, and own those businesses. And so I think that's the kind of thing that I'm quite interested about, is how could you displace existing software while leveraging the creator as the sort of marketing arm of it.
Got it. Well, Miles, thank you so much for your time. It's been great to hear about how you support creators. I'm a massive advocate of creators building products beyond AdSense and brand deals. Before we wrap up, I'd love to ask a few questions just in terms of like, is there a creator out there that you would love to design a product for?
Yeah, God, the list is long. I've had all of the like theorist media brands on the wish list forever. I have no idea what the product would be, but I love MapAd and stuff so much that, and obviously they've kind of moved on, but like that whole ecosystem feels just so strong to me. And the people who love Theorist are so passionate about it. So I know there's something there. I just haven't thought through what it is. And then on a personal level, my favorite YouTuber is a freestyle rapper named Harry Mack, who like, I love. Go check out Harry Mack on YouTube. He's the GOAT. And again, I have no idea what the product would be there, but Harry's just awesome, and I would love to work with him and figure out something there that could be cool.
Well, Harry, if you're listening, get in touch with Miles.
Yeah, there you go.
And is there a particular creator that you've seen launch something recently and you've been really impressed with their go-to-market strategy?
Yeah. Listen, I think Kai and Streamer University has been very interesting. I wouldn't say I think there are lessons to be learned both on like what went well there and obviously what didn't and what hasn't. So I think there's maybe like a bit of cautionary tale in there, but very, very interesting. I mean, I'm sure people will write extensively about that. But the one that probably comes to mind that I have learned a lot and really admire the way that he is doing that is, I'm sure you know Brett Dashevsky as well.
Yep.
What he is doing with Sifsy, I think, is really, really smart, where he has built a product that he himself would want and use. And the way that he is talking about it in his content is really just by using it. And so the kind of marketing brain in me goes, oh, I'm being advertised Sifsy here. But really, I am just seeing a creator use it authentically in their content and really kind of speak to the use case. And I think that has piqued people's interest in a very authentic way. So yeah, that's the one that comes to mind. I think like, especially in a creator who could be building something that is a tool that they themselves would use, just using it authentically is a great way to go to market and to avoid that kind of sales oriented ick.
Great. Kudos to Brett there.
Yeah.
And
shout out
one
to
final
Brett.
question. I know you've shared lots of great advice already, but if you were a solo creator, you're thinking about launching your first product, what's kind of like the one thing that you should be thinking about?
Yeah, I would, if I'm not already, I would just be spending so much time in my DMs and comments. I think there's just a treasure trove of information in there that oftentimes creators are not necessarily ignoring, but just looking at on a surface level. It is, the response and reaction to a video rather than the pain point that is being communicated. And so every piece of content I post, I would be going back and looking at comments and DMs that generated from that piece of content. And I would be asking like, what is the pain point here? And then I would be trying to hypothesize solutions for products that solution to that pain point.
That makes sense. And one final question, actually. We can't not talk about AI. What's your perspective on AI? And I mean, you've used an example there of a tool that you're building, but do you see it as a threat? Do you see it as an opportunity?
I suppose like my like primal human brain has like existential dread about it. My practical business brain definitely think it is rife with opportunities. The two things that I'm most excited about for it in the context of the creator economy and the work we do is just products that couldn't have existed previously. And so being able to provide incredibly personalized, tailored experiences, like there's just things we couldn't have built a year ago that we can build now that I think is really, really cool. And then the second is just the reduction in costs of developing software. And so if you were a creator, spending $1 million to build an app probably didn't make sense before. But if that's $200,000, then it totally changes the calculus on how these businesses can be built. And I think is going to open up a lot of opportunities for creators to be building these things rather than becoming just the kind of marketing arm or face of them.
Very wise words there. Well, Miles, thank you so much for coming on the show. If anyone wants to get in contact with you, how should they do so?
Follow me on LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. Hit me up in the DMs on LinkedIn, or you can check us out at raredays.com.
And follow your content as well on LinkedIn. I love your
posts.
Yeah.
Yes, you get a mix of business content and memes and unhinged stuff.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Miles.
Thanks very much for having me in.